Replayability, see? Replayability. Fall of 1993 saw me back at school full-time. I still had no idea what I was going to school for, but I was hoping to figure that out. I loaded up on studio courses, and I took a weather and climate course to meet my natural science requirement. Michelle and I were inseparable, and things were going pretty well for the first time in a long time. I was still working nights part-time, but we were making it work. I was also getting along pretty well with my family. The fall of 1993 was also when I would encounter one of my all-time favorite football games, Tecmo Super Bowl for the Sega Genesis. All 28 NFL teams with their actual rosters, the ability to play multiple seasons, season stat tracking, and the ability to edit playbooks are just some of the features Tecmo Super Bowl for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo bring to the party. Add to these the ability to control multiple teams during the season, substitute different players on offense and special teams, and you have the most comprehensive football game to date. Tecmo Super Bowl succeeds where the Joe Montana and John Madden franchises come up short, delivering a complete football experience that is also a blast to play even now, 27 years after the game's initial release. The controls have been improved, but Tecmo managed to preserve the simplicity of the original Tecmo Bowl. There is a familiarity to the game while improving the overall user experience. Players move very well and the controls are responsive. The passing game is similar to Joe Montana football, but lacks the clumsiness and inaccuracy that crippled the first three titles in the Montana franchise. The running game feels balanced, even when using elite running backs like Emmitt Smith and Thurman Thomas. On the defensive side of the ball, Tecmo Super Bowl does feel a little overpowered, especially if you have premier players like Howie Long, Bruce Smith, or Reggie White in your lineup. Players like these can single-handedly take over a game, throwing the balance between teams off, made even more obvious if you're controlling that player on a given team. In addition to great gameplay, there are quite a few other features that draw you deeper into the Tecmo Super Bowl experience. Tecmo Super Bowl features full season play including playoffs and Super Bowl, season stat tracking, player conditions and injuries, league standings, team rankings for defense and offense, and Pro Bowl rosters for the AFC and NFC that are based off of individual season performances. With the advent of player conditions and injuries, you need to monitor your players' overall condition throughout the year to prevent injuries and poor performances from week to week. To enhance the simulation, you can now play 3 seasons back-to-back, 1991, 92, and 93, a feature that separates Tecmo Super Bowl from their competitors. The only features that would have been nice to have would have been the ability to substitute defensive players and have some sort of free agency feature. But when you consider the evolution of Tecmo Super Bowl between the NES and the 16-bit versions of the game, it's impossible to knock Tecmo for leaving them out of this version of the game. When it comes to graphics, Tecmo Super Bowl does a nice job with presentation. Player models strike a good balance between the classic player models from previous games and adding detail for the new game to make them look more like real players. The number of cutscenes has been expanded to include animations for sacks, short yardage plays, attempts at blocking kicks and passes, big plays by receivers, and of course touchdowns. The improvements don't stop there. There are now animations for players who get injured both as they are helped off of the field and when they return to the team. The halftime show returns, and there is now a more detailed box score at halftime and at the end of the game that highlight key stats from the game. Outside of gameplay, you now have access to detailed statistics including league leaders for various categories. These statistics can be further refined by conference and division. You can also review statistics at the individual team level as well, so you can make staffing decisions on the offense. The only stat that seems to be missing is tackles, but everything else can be reviewed, sorted, and applied. You can also review NFL standings by conference, division, and league. With the exception of league standings, all of these features are firsts in football games to date. Tecmo Super Bowl hits so many high notes visually, it's difficult to point to any real flaws in the game. If there was one criticism I have, it's that Tecmo Super Bowl suffers from a one-size-fits-all approach to character models. There is no difference between players. Every position looks the same as every other position. There is no difference in size between linemen and other positions. However, this small oversight in no way affects the wow factor that Tecmo Super Bowl puts on display. To put it in simpler terms, Tecmo Super Bowl is the measuring stick for all other football games from any era, current gen included. What can I say? Tecmo Super Bowl is an absolute joy to play. The controls are top-notch, action is fast-paced, you can get through 2 to 3 games in an hour, and the game feels balanced. There are 28 teams to choose from with complete rosters and unique playbooks. Other publishers would have done well to learn from Tecmo's example. Tecmo Super Bowl brings an impressive level of replayability to the table. Every NFL team is represented, 3 years worth of season play including playoffs, stat tracking, great visuals. There's only one real question left. Can you manage to take the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl? Games are fast, or if you prefer, you can sim the results. Get some friends together on a weekend or an evening and start a league with each person controlling 1 or 2 teams of their choice. How you play is up to you. My roommates and I took it one step further and drew our teams out of a hat in order to make things more random. That's the beauty of Tecmo Super Bowl. You can choose how to enjoy the game, which makes it more enjoyable than any other football game available at the time. Despite its arcade pedigree, Tecmo Super Bowl scratches the football fans' itch of wanting to take a team from Week 1 to Week 17 and beyond. Season stat tracking lets you do so in style, while injuries to key players can directly impact the team's playoff aspirations. Having the ability to customize your playbook allows you to make each team uniquely yours. There were no other football games released up to this point that allowed the level of control, none even attempted to pull off what Tecmo did with Tecmo Super Bowl, which makes the 16-bit version of Tecmo's football game a must-own for football fans. Tecmo Super Bowl is a masterpiece and continues to hold a special place in my heart, even 27 years after its original release.